All right, welcome back. The first thing that we're going to be doing is we need to attach some of these objects in Unity to a game instance. So for example, you can see that I've done 2 of these already here, game boards and game rounds. The reason for that is that we have one game which is called battle, one game which is called free play, one game which is called practice. There are 9 rounds in each of those games. However, those rounds could be the same. So we're implementing a many-to-many relationship for that. I don't know, is this going to freeze up on me or is it going to kick through? Let's just wait and see. So on the back side here, when we refresh our drawers here, this is it. We have this create piece function. What is going on with my computer? See, we have a number of these where we're searching for the correct pieces. And we're going to need to change those. And then also, so if I look for all my instances of this, this is my first one, play piece. We actually want to do this and we want to include my game pieces SO. And I want to say where my x.gamePiecesSO has an any where my game SO ID is equal to my game, which has to be game.gameDTO.ID, game SO ID, and it's active. Okay. These piece blocks, we only want to get the ones where piece SOs have any where my if I look at this piece block SO, it does have a piece SO on it. So you want to make sure that it's there and it's active. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is in Go To Next Board. That's okay. So here we want to do a include our game piece SOs where my game piece SOs have any where my game SO ID equals my game, which I get from my match dot game match set dot round dot game SO dot ID. And it's active. Okay, we want to do the same thing for piece blocks here. So we want to say where my piece SOs dot any, where my ID is equal to my piece SO ID, and it's active. Okay. So that's right. We'll go to the next one here. Good, we're getting the right board. So it's again the same thing. We want to include my game pieces. And I want to get the ones where my game pieces have any, where my game SOID is equal to my game.gamedto.game_SOID. And it's active. And then our piece blocks here are going to be where my piece SOs has my ID is equal to my x.pieceSOID, and it's active. Like that. I knew I was missing something there. Okay, the next one here, same deal. We want to get the pieces, and we want to include here the game piece SOs. We want to say where my x.gamePieceSOs have any, where my game SOID is equal to my game.gamedto.game_SOID, and it is active. Which means the piece blocks here need to also be where my piece SOs have any, where my ID is equal to my x.pieceSOID. Here it is again. Just a few more of these. Same thing as what we've been doing. Your game SOID is equal to your game VM.GameDTO.GameSOID, and it's active. And then our piece blocks are going to be where my piece SOs.any t, where my ID is equal to my x.pieceSOID. Like that. Got another one here in the single player instance. Like this. Then we want to say my game pieces.any has any, where my piece SOID where my game SOID is equal to game.gamedto.game_SOID, and it's active. And then the same thing here for piece blocks. We want to do a where my piece SOs any, where my ID is equal to my x piece SOID, like that. Just a few more. This is where we create the player pieces here. And I want to include here my game piece SOs, and I want to get the one where my game piece SOs has any, where my game SOID is equal to game so.id. And it's active like that. We have another one here, same exact thing. We want to include here my game pieces, where my x.gamePieces has any, where my ID is equal to my game so.game .id, and it's active. Few more. We got another one here. Here's your game SO. And we want to do it where my x.gamePiece SOs have any, where my game SO ID is equal to my game so.id, and it's active. And then my piece blocks are going to be where my piece SOs has any, where my ID is equal to my x.piece SO ID, and it's active. We've got another one here. Same thing. Like that. And then here we want to have the same one again, which is piece SOs.any, where my ID is equal to my x.piece SO ID, and it's active. Got another one here. Same thing. We want to include my game pieces, where my game pieces SOs has one, where my game SO ID is equal to my game so.id, and it's active. And then my piece blocks here are going to be where my piece SOs.any, where my t.id equals x.piece SO ID. And this is the last one here, which is fine. Okay, so let's take one more look at these, make sure that we got them all. Sorry. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That looks right. And then also I want to look at the one for the board SOs. Make sure I got all these. This one is okay because it's already been calculated. That looks all right. Yep. Okay. So we've added all of those object connections here. And so now we're ready to add them to the game. Okay, so over here, I'm going to open up my code base. And what I want to have here in my game, I want to have a new one here called a game piece is what I'm looking for. So game piece SO. And we're going to make a new one of these called game object SO, which will be abstract and just have the game. So now this can be a game object SO, and this is a game object SO. This is a game object SO. Perfect. Now that we've got our game piece that we can create, I want to look at my data exporter first, because if we have a game piece SO, game piece create request, and this needs to have in it a piece SO ID. This needs to be a piece SO. Okay. The import's automatic. Back over here in my library under requests for scriptable objects, I should have a, I do, that's right, okay. So now that that's done, let's go make sure I didn't break any of my objects here. And the ones that I'm concerned about are the ones that were connected to game. So these, they look okay. And so now on my title manager, I'm going to get rid of this temporary one called round. I'm going to add a new one called piece SO. And then in my asset exporter, we're going to uncomment this, and we're going to programmatically create these. So this is going to be a number of piece SO called pieces. Create game pieces. Like this. This is a piece SO, a game, and then we're going to put this in my game pieces. Right there. And so now in my title manager, I can just do a asset exporter dot create game pieces, and we're going to pass in my games and my pieces here. Now in the app, I have a new folder called Game Pieces on my title manager. I want to add these pieces here, and we'll run it. Okay, we created our game pieces, which are here. So we're going to make 3 folders, one for battle, one for practice, and one for free play. Move the battle ones into battle, move the free play ones into free play, move the practice ones into practice. Look at our asset database. We're going to add all 3. Additionally, now I want to look at my game, because now we should have a game piece SO called game pieces. Okay. So this one here has a number of game pieces at the bottom here. So this is battle. This is free play. Now I'm not happy. See how this is wrong? The naming of these is wrong. So let's go back, delete these. Just takes a second. Look at my asset database. We're down to 2059. Okay. We're going to do it again, except for I'm going to change game piece. Okay. Now, if I wanted to do this faster, I believe in here I can go piece dot game dot game pieces, right? And then I want to do editor utility dot set dirty my game. Now in piece, I also want to have a game SO called games. No, it's called game piece SO called game pieces. And here we're going to do a piece.game. Let's just start with this and run that. Okay, there we go. Now when I look at this at my games, we should have my game pieces assigned, and we do. So we'll put these in battle, these in free play, these in practice. And if I look at my asset database, we'll add these again. And then for my pieces, so for example, we have duo here, which is these three. We have the I one here, which is this one, and this one. We have J. We have L. We have O. Come on. S. We have one here for single. And one for T. We have another one here for trio, L. Another one for trio, R. Another one for trio, S. And the last one is for trio, Z. Or for Z, I'm sorry. Okay, so those are done. When I look here at my piece blocks, these don't have a piece. Oh, they do. And piece blocks are assigned here as well, so that's right. So that's done. So now where we, in the game code, we can comment this out. And then the same thing with the title manager, we can get rid of the piece and games and then this. And so now in the game, when I'm offline, here's the first one where you create the draws. You have a create piece SO. Luckily, we have all this stuff here. So we're going to have a string here for my game SOID. We're going to have another one here like this, and then another one like that. And we need to look at all the references that this one is at. Create piece. So I want to do a where my game pieces dot any where my game so dot id is equal to game so id. We've got another one here, which is your game pieces dot any game so dot id equals game so id, and then this is the last one here. It's not game pieces dot any sorry, it's t dot game soid is equal to game soid. So where you create your draws here, we want to pass in a game.id. This one here needs to be a match player board. Nope, it's just a game.id. And in game player, this one is a game.id. And this one here is a you do have a game. Where is this being set? In this init. So we'll just try a game.id for now. And now we can try this offline. Looks good. We have to fix our music here, but it did create the pieces. And I can test this by going to my game pieces here. We're going to do this as a practice. Turn this just to be 1. And then if I go to my asset database and I reduce this to be 2084, and now when I run it, And everything should be duos now. So we're doing this on the piece itself is why. So if I looked at the see all these right here. So if I was to set these to be because you're going through that to the piece itself. So if I was to change these to be 0, there. Now we can see that everything is just duos, which is what we want. So I can go back a little bit here to where I remove these things. Like that. Okay. Now we have to get our multiplayer set up. That should go really quick here. So we're going to go to the SQL Server, and I'm going to open up a browser to my AWS EC to my AWS S3 instances. And this is for Gem Wars here. So I'm going to delete all of my objects. Like that. And then in the database here, we can delete Gem Wars. Over in here, I want to set this API as my startup project, and I want to get rid of all my migrations. And I want to do a add migration called init. Woot woot multiplayer, says a fallen hope. Yeah, we're almost to the actual multiplayer coding. I'm just polishing up the single player APK demo. Okay, we'll do an update database. Okay, now we can start all of our projects. And in my scriptable object data access layer, I want to make sure that we are creating our new game pieces. And then in the Unity source, underneath my title manager, we're going to post out all of our objects. And now we're going to post that. Now on the controller, which is where these post to, we should have breakpoints, and we do. There it is starting. It's now prepping all the data in the back end. Create our scriptable objects here. This is going to take a minute, probably longer than a minute. You can watch the status over here in S3. You can see it needs to post out the 400 and whatever number of avatars. So we're at 15. Up to 62. We're up to 219 now. $261. $309, almost there. $336, almost done. Because GemWars has already made the post, we can stop it. And in the title manager now, I'm just going to assume that this works so I can uncomment this stuff. $366. Okay, here we go. Now we are deserializing our game pieces, creating our entities, and it is populated. Create our AI players, save it. And we're good. So now when I look at the database, you can see our new scriptable objects should have a type in here called a game object SO. Hey Chuck, how are you doing? Wait a minute, why don't I see those? Game piece. That's why. So it's here. So we could do like where my discriminator is equal to game piece SO. Doing good, says Chuck. It's great to have you back in the stream, buddy. There's the two IDs, and that's all we have. So that's good. So those are in now. So now when I run the game from the server this time, okay. And now when we run this from the server, we can create our new user. Got a question for you. If you've played around with caching technologies a lot before, I have. I've used servers for it, like Redis servers or Elasticache. I've used Mongo, which doesn't really necessarily capture caching. If you're using ASP.NET and the controllers, you can use annotations on the top so that it's a built-in cache. Yeah, I've got some experience with caching. Let's go ahead and practice this. Takes just a minute with the latency of all the servers. Come on. Well, that's odd. Check it again. I grasped the idea of caching at many levels of an application. Just one remaining case I can't get my head around. Sure, which is the case? So it's not creating the game on the server now. Why is that? If I look at my multiple layers, let's take a look at the single player BLL. Right here. There's this situation where I'm playing with almost static data, very cacheable, but at the same time, it's a must that it should be discarded and reflected in the application immediately upon modification. Okay. So here it is making the players, create the opponents. It's failing in there. So let's try it again. It's going to just be a mapping thing almost for sure. So the basic concept of expiring every 2 hours or stuff like that doesn't apply. Right. You're going to need to make some sort of, like, if it is static data, you're going to want to have a static class, right? Which has got like a concurrent dictionary of the data that you have. And then you want to like have a timer running on it that disposes of it or whatever, however you need to do that. So I've seen like endcache, which receive notifications when a certain table is modified. Not sure if there's better ways to go. PubSub. Look at Redis. Redis PubSub. Use this. And that way you don't necessarily need to create your own. What that does is you can have events that you publish out and then different clients which are subscribed to them. So you can invoke methods on the other clients, but you don't have to like go through all the pain of having TCP servers and all that. But I like this because it sounds like that if you have this, Redis works really well if you have multiple applications that need the same data. If you're in one application, then you could just write like a static class that manages it inside of there if you want to hold it in memory or whatever. If the API is also the one who allows you to modify those data, perhaps it already knows when stuff should be discarded from the cache, right? Well, you'll want to put a lock on it, right? So that way you don't have multiple API calls modifying the data at one time. But are you trying to get the modifications to the tables to be seen by other applications, or is it all within one application? Because if that's the case, then make a static class and add a static event handler and fire the events and then capture those when you need them. That's what I would do. Okay, so if it's a microservice which could have multiple instances, then I absolutely think you want Redis PubSub, hands down. And think of it not so much as a modification on the database table, but whatever object you put into, you don't even need to put an object in there. You can literally just use Redis PubSub so that when you make a modification to the table, then you just you publish that change and everybody will refresh their data. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I thought MongoDB had something similar, but I can't find it for streaming or for PubSub. Come on. Okay, we got over here to the game received. Get my game player. That's it. So it's in the round single player response. We're going to stop it right there. Try it again. Anyway, the only thing that will modify data is the API itself, so I guess I can do all that stuff programmatically with Redis to notify other services when I'm about to modify something. I won't do anything for when a programmer plays manually in SQL, obviously. Yep, that's exactly how I would handle that. And then just make a transient class for Redis that you can just inject into the controllers, right? So that after you do the save context, whatever, right? Then you know that your data has been changed in SQL Server, then issue it. But don't issue it until your save's complete, you know, your transaction's done. But, I mean, it sounds like you know what you're doing, so it's good. I'm glad we were able to find a solution that worked. So we did get around. We're creating this, and now here, this is my round for gem colors, which is not null. We create the board. The board is not null. We've got 12 pieces. That was it. So it's here. Is game SO null? Let's look to see what's happening here. So Redis is basically another alternative to stuff like SignalR, maybe a bit different. I'll catch up on the microservices knowledge, I swear. Think of it more like MongoDB, okay? So it's like something that you can put objects into, right? And it holds all of those objects only in memory. It doesn't ever make a write to the disk, right? So if you restart your Redis instance, your data's gone. So it's sort of like a cache server, if you will, right? That can be like your middle layer between multiple microservices instances. But the really nice thing about Redis is the pub sub, because then you can use it as a communication layer between them. So you could use like SignalR, right? Where you could have one service, which is like your server, and then you could have your fleet of microservices that are all clients to that server and have them connect. So you could manually write that. You could do it with TCP, or you could do it with Redis, right? It fails right there for some reason. Let's run it again. Why would that be failing? What time is it right now? My computer says 1:33. But my phone says it's 12:33. Oh, well, it changed today. That's why. The link expression can't be translated. So up here, if I was to change this, and I don't know if this is going to work, so we're just trying something cheap here. Let's see if that will kick it through. Daylight savings time. Yeah, that's what I checked. It changed today. the other thing we could do is we could do a toList on that, but I don't want to do a toList on that. It should be fine. Oh, okay. I get it. Okay, so now we're going to do this. See it kick in. It's still unhappy with me. Okay, we're going to look really quick for entity framework where with any. Ugh. Could I do a piece sos.select piece ID contains let's try that. Maybe it's because it was two link calls nested together or something. Wait for it to start up. Hey there, DK Flames. How are you doing? Yeah, we've made one on the stream that's been produced and published. It's up on Steam. It's called There's No Turning Back. It's also available on Android and soon to be on Apple. How are you doing today? Welcome to the channel. All right, here we go. Kick through there, kick through there. Here we go. It worked. So we need now to go to this piece blocks SOs and change those. To be this. Wait. Wait. Let's go back and do this again. We want to select t.id. And then we want it contains this. We're going to go and make sure that this works one more time. Which game engine do we use? We're using a Unity for this. Been meaning to look at Unreal for some time, though. I'm sure once we go to 3D, we'll be transitioning. Thank you, Fallen Hope. You're the man. Okay, we're going to run it again. We probably need to abandon the game this time. Oh no, because we cut the back end before it wrote the game. Going to kick through. There it is. And it works. Okay, so we stop it. Over here, we get rid of our catch. Like that. And then back over in here, we did that one. Select my ID, and it contains that. Again here, select my t.id.contains this. Like that. Just a few more. That's fine. That one's done. Just like 3 more. That one's good. That one's good, and the last one is right here. Like that. Now we can run it again, and it should work fine. Come on, kick through. So it failed. But why did it fail? Because that's weird. Just done reading a bit on it. So when using their distributed cache, I'm assuming that every attempt to retrieve something from the cache first has to go through a socket to another server, right? I believe so. I've never set it up. I have a wrapper that I use with it for when I have to use Redis in particular. I do a lot with Mongo, not so much with Redis myself. Okay, let's see here. Go to the next round. Create the game players. Make the match. Get the round to draw from. And there it is. We create the draws is where it fails. So we'll try again. It scares me a little bit to use it as it was an in-memory cache, but have the overhead of going out on the network on every request. It's really small. Oh, you're doing it with every request? Yeah, I still think that's the way that you want to do it, though. Or, I mean, just write your own TCP thing. You can use this if you want your own TCP thing. This one I wrote, it's got docs with it. We created the piece. That was it. It failed the init. Which is this one. Game is null. And I was worried that that was going to be the case. So we're just going to add in here a game SO. Like that. And now here in my board, we should be able to pass in the game SO. Because that's where it gets a net. Should be working fine now. And there it is. We can see that the opponent is playing and the pieces are all set. We didn't get our music transition, but we'll fix that later. Okay, so over in source tree, I'm going to make a commit here on Gem Wars 31. My time will be 60 minutes. My comment will be created game piece SO, and we'll stage all that. Now I wanted to do one more thing, which was if I look at games, we're going to open this up, and we don't need to have these blocks, color chances, draw chances, gem, reward, We don't want any of those. Okay. That's better. That looks right. If I look at my pieces, we can get rid of these piece blocks and pieces, right? Because piece blocks are here and they have a piece associated with them. So down here, you want to do a var piece blocks equals scriptable object factory dot and in here we should have a get piece blocks of a string of a piece SOID. And we want to do a scriptable objects of type piece block SO, where my piece dot ID equals piece SO ID to array. And that's going to be from my ID. And so now here, all right, I love Redis, says Chuck. It is far more advanced and safe than the solution I had in mind. Yeah, Redis is pretty cool, man. So here I want to get my asset database.scriptable objects of type. This is called a game piece SO, where my GameSO.id equals GameSOID. Order by GUID.newGUID. First or default. And now what I want to do is your piece where your first or default where your ID is equal to gamepiece.pieceso.id. Same thing here. And you want to get the and my x.pieceso.id equals pieceso.id. And then this one's going to be your game piece.pieceso.id, like that. And this is the last one here, which is another game piece. And then you want to return the one where your ID is equal to your game piece.pieceso.id. So now you can do here a piece blocks equals scriptable object factory dot get piece blocks of my piece.id. Three errors. Piece blocks equals piece so dot, nope, it's a scriptable object factory dot get piece blocks of my piece so.id. And when you do this, you want to do a order by GUID.newGUID. So it's random. Same thing here. And then here. Okay. Now I've removed all my references, a bunch of them, so let's try it out. And now we can see it's working. Yep. Okay, so my avatar sets, we can remove this list of avatar images. Okay. Okay, on your boards, we can get rid of our game boards. So here you want to get your var game board equals your asset database dot scriptable objects of type game board SO. And you want to say where your game SO dot ID equals game SO ID dot toList. And you want to say where your you don't have a game board on this. Hold on. Because the board is supposed to have a list of game boards, but we don't want it to. So I could do a select my board first or default x where my index equals index. Otherwise, we're going to get this of type game board SO. And I want to select the board. And I want to get the first or default game board. Where my x.gameso.id equals gamesoid. And then I want to select my board SO. And I want to do my first or default where my index equals max. Got another one here. That returns a board SO. So you could just do await create board SO of my game SO ID and my index. This is no await. Like that. Give that a run, see if that works. Both offline and online. So online worked. Is that, there we go. Okay. We still have to do those color chances. And we have these game rounds here, which we need to get rid of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be back in 18 minutes. We're going to continue on this. We just got a few more objects to create, and then we're going to start to create our remaining player items. So thanks for staying with me, and I'll see you in just a little bit. Thanks.